Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Launch LinkedIn Live. It's great to have you here. And for those of you who are watching the recording back, thank you very much. I want to introduce the gang that we have today. And we've called this LinkedIn Live Hot Off the Press because we're very lucky as a Google Premier Partner Agency to sit on things like the Google Exec Circle, which is the top 1% of agencies in the UK who sit on that, and we get invited to incredible events at Google in order for us to be able to bring those learnings and insights to our clients. And we thought, well, we've had quite a few events recently. Why don't we do a LinkedIn Live this Friday and find out what the latest is that we've learned? So I've got a wonderful crew of lollers here. Shall we introduce ourselves? I'll go first. We have a bit of a tradition, which is that we introduce ourselves with what we do, but also our favorite biscuit. So I'm Jay, I'm the managing director and founder at Launch. And my favorite biscuit is a jammy dodger, the one with the cream in. That they do exist, apparently not called jammy dodgers, but they're delicious. Ian, do you want to go next?
Yeah, cheers, Jay. I'm Ian. I'm the head of analytics at Launch, and my favourite biscuit is the Maryland cookie. I could eat all of them in one go if I was allowed to. So, really nice. Thanks for that.
Hi guys, I'm Danny, head of paid at Launch, and I will go with the chocolate hobnob. But I controversially keep mine in the fridge. The team are not on board with it, but yeah, mine have got to be in the fridge. It holds it. It's better dunker. It's a better out fridge.
Biscuit's not in the fridge, but I have put my Easter eggs in the fridge. Hi everyone, I'm Harriet. I'm a paid media director here at Launch. And my favourite biscuit is a chocolate digestive, but the ones with the extra caramel layer in the middle because they are superior.
I'm going to start a biscuit because Snap. That's my favourite. I used to, when I was at uni, eat them by the packet. I'm Elliot, and I'm a paid media director here at Launch.
And as you're the last one to go, Elliot, do you and Harriet want to talk about the event that you went to recently and what kind of takeaways you had from that?
Yeah, definitely. So we were lucky enough to go to the Think Global event in Dublin a couple of weeks ago. Quite privileged to be there, actually. There were companies and agencies there from 27 countries, so lots of different languages on the go around us, but thankfully most of it was English most of the time. The event was aimed to show businesses how they can use Google to expand their businesses globally, hence the name Think Globally. There were three, there's a framework of three themes, I guess, for each of the talks that we attended across the 2 days, which were geodiversification, so obviously the expansion globally, localized go-to-market, so that was showing how Google's products can help you to, sort of bed in those new countries that you're expanding into. And then what probably won't come as a surprise, and I would imagine it's a theme of Ian and Danny's event they went to as well, as the final theme was AI-fueled efficiency, of course.
We should be playing AI bingo, shouldn't we? Every time the word AI gets mentioned, we have to eat chocolate or something like that.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I think probably early on the first day, one of the speakers introduced this idea of the hermit consumer, which wasn't something that I'd come across before, but actually something that I've seen quite a lot since and sort of retrospectively looking. And the idea is that the consumer trends post-pandemic, which used to be one of our buzzwords, or post-COVID, some of them have bedded in. So some of those lockdown trends that people adopted during the pandemic haven't actually gone away. And what that means, this hermit consumer concept, is people, as we all know, aren't going out to bricks and mortar stores as much as they used to. Online shopping sort of boomed or peaked in COVID and hasn't really come back down to the levels it was previously. And what that means is people are doing a lot more research into what they're buying, paired with the fact that we're in the cost of living crisis. Disposable income is a little bit short these days. The research and the time and the thought people are putting into their purchases is a lot higher than previously. And what that means, sort of from a marketing point of view or from a Google point of view, is that we need to make sure that the messages and the strategies that we're putting out there are, number one, consistent across various different touch points, because people are spending a lot more time across a lot of different sources doing their research, but also that it's relevant and it's lasting. So someone might take 6 days to consider their purchase, then buy. Somebody might take 6 months, and it's about being able to adapt both of those purchase journeys and understanding the behaviours of the consumer so that we can make sure that we're always there for them, essentially.
We talk a lot about the messy middle, don't we? Did that make an appearance?
Absolutely. Yeah, they were talking about the messy middle and the exploration evaluation phases. I can't remember exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And how it's essentially lengthened.
So for those of you watching, the messy middle was a white paper called Decoding Decisions by Google and the Behavior Architects. You can find it online. And it's a really good insight into the idea that there's basically an infinite loop that people can go into through their exploration and evaluation stage before they then make that purchase. And how do you make sure that you're there for all those moments and to help people get over the line? It's a really, really good paper. If you're a digital marketeer and you haven't read it, that's the one thing that you should do today. And also, I should say, if anybody's watching and has questions for our team, please do put them in the chat and we will get through as many as we can. There's always a bit of a delay. There's about a 10-second delay before this actually goes out on LinkedIn. So if we don't respond immediately, that's why. But please do ask questions. So from the Think Global perspective, we're finding that at launch, we sit in the UK and we might be running global campaigns in EMEA, in Australasia, in America, and we do it all from the UK. What kind of insights were coming from that go-to-market strategy, that export mentality?
Well, I think one of the biggest takeaways that I took on that front was, and it kind of links to what Harry was saying about, consumers doing lots of research. It's obviously really important you to do research on your consumers, but more importantly, when people are looking to expand to new countries, I think, like I said, the biggest takeaway was to do your research on the cultures, or connect with cultures, as Google called it at the event. You need to be really clever and really aware of what's happening in communities that you're targeting. And a really good example that was discussed was by Alessandro Manni, who's the global media director at, hopefully pronounced it right, Elisa Luxottica, who own lots of eyewear brands, including Ray-Ban and Oakley. The example that he gave of Oakley was he was comparing it, the Japanese market, which they're expanding into, to the Italian market, where in Italy, the products there, you're going to get bright frames. You're going to, they're going to be made to make you stand out. They're going to look glamorous, etc. Whereas actually in Japan, the culture there is you're kind of encouraged more to blend in. So bright frames, for example, on eyewear isn't going to work and wouldn't have worked. So that's one thing they didn't expand out there with. And another thing as well in terms of lenses. Having dark lenses was never going to work there, because it's seen as it's basically rude not to be able to see somebody's eyes. It's a sign of disrespect. So it's really interesting to see the level of detail they went into with researching not just how their products will sell in that country from a ROAS or ROI perspective, but also making sure that they can adapt to the culture within any countries that they're expanding out to. So I think for me, that was one of the biggest learnings, which I'm taking into account now in terms of working out how accounts, if they're starting in new countries, can adapt to the culture there.
Yeah, I think it's like doing your market research properly, isn't it, before you go into those markets. And there was a lot of focus as well on expanding into the US, which I think we, as an agency, we have a lot of clients that are running the US, and people sort of say, oh, we want to start selling in the US. And I always turn around and say, well, the US is a continent, not a country. Like, it's so big and so vast that you really need to hone in on where you are looking in the US and why. And this is something that they also gave a talk on when we were there. And essentially looking at like different areas of the US, almost as like different countries. The example that rings true with me was they had the head of performance marketing from Mango, so the women's clothing brand up at Google. She was doing like a panel, and she spoke about, from a women's apparel point of view, the products they sell in different areas of the US really, really vary. So in sort of California, where the climate is a lot warmer, they're selling a lot of summer dresses, a lot of sort of thinner, lighter, and what that means quite often is lower price point clothing, versus in some of the colder states, they're selling big winter coats. which naturally have a higher basket value, but the sort of repeat purchase rate there is a lot slower. So she was talking really interestingly about having different ROI targets, different lifetime value targets, almost like different strategies in different states based on the product they're selling, just because the sort of climate diversity and the geodiversity across the US is so vast.
So the little nuances of making sure that when you're adopting campaigns and new strategies, customer lifetime value, there's a new one on beta, isn't there? A higher lifetime customer value.
Yeah, I think it's coming soon, maybe to Performance Max, but it's new customer acquisition for high lifetime value or something like that. So
and so having the strategies per state.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about not just picking up your strategy from the UK and sort of plonking it across the whole of the US. Like, you need to be a lot more nuanced than that.
To add to that as well, I'm kind of linking back to the points I was making about adapting to the culture as well, and the nuances, as you said, Jay. It kind of feeds into there was a really good section that we in a talk about the behavioural science element as well. So when we're looking at our ad copy, making sure that the ad is talking to the people in that country, not from a language perspective, but from a culture perspective as well. So another good example that was shown was, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the pratfall effect. Anybody ever heard of that? No? So what it is essentially is always in ad copy or advertising, stop making a positive out of a negative from your product, or adding an element of innocence by acknowledging maybe a downside to your product. So the best example, of course, they gave, being in Dublin at that time, was Guinness, as in good things come to those who wait. Obviously, you have to wait a long time for the pint to settle, but once it does, it's a perfect pint. So bringing those sort of things into your ad copy, but making sure that it is appropriate to the culture, because that is something that Google earmarked is working very well in the UK. Possibly perhaps do about sense of humor, I don't know, self-deprecating, not really sure, but maybe not in other EU nations and the US. Whereas with the US, relying more on your ad copy on the review element side of things, because reviews are paramount to US consumers. So ensuring you have testimonials or rankings, ratings within your copy that you're using is really important.
Yeah, and I think the final thing to add, just to wrap that up as well, they spoke about the Amazon effect, which I'm sure a lot of people are very used to, but this idea these days, again, especially post-COVID, that if you're ordering things, you're getting them within like 2 to 3 working days as a minimum. And if you can't ship to those new markets within that time frame, then making it very clear from sort of the product page that you can't, because we've all been there. It happened to me the other day, where you fill a basket with stuff ready for your holiday that's in 3 days time, and then it says 10-day shipping, and then empty basket, off you go. So just managing those expectations. And I know that Joe, on our side, from a conversion point of view, will be banging that drum as well, to make sure you're not getting unexpected shipping costs or shipping delays at the checkout phase. Yeah,
I was shopping on Decathlon the other day, and I had a basket of about 120 quid, and I went to go and check out, and it was 10-day shipping. I thought, well, I can just buy all of this on Amazon anyway, different brands. And I was really disappointed, because I'd spent ages choosing the right ski socks.
Or you would have saved yourself some time, or your expectation would have been managed, and you could have been like, okay, I don't need them for 14 days, so that's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
What was the option though for click and collect? And
there wasn't an option for click and collect. Yeah, I would have even driven to Cardiff, would I? I don't know. I would have. Thanks, Harriet and Elliot. That was an excellent summary of Think Global. The was it Think Global event?
Think Global, yeah.
Nice. Ian, should we talk about the event that you went to?
Yeah, definitely. So it was a real pleasure to be part of Think Measurement in Google offices in Dublin last week. As you can imagine, it was all around measurement, reporting and tracking. We were seeing things like roadmaps of what's happening with GA4. We were hearing other agencies, other large companies showing frustrations around their GA4 as well. So it was really nice to see what Google had to say about that. One of the biggest messages that we got was the time to prepare for everything that's changing is gone. You need to be in that position now, in terms of enhanced conversions, the new Digital Marketers Act came into effect on the 6th of March, which includes consent mode version 2. And
we should refer people back in at this point to a webinar we did a couple of weeks ago on LinkedIn with Ryan from Hybrid Legal, which was a really, really thorough kind of look at some of those policies for marketing, well, not just marketing teams, but companies to look at to make sure that their website's compliant. If you comment below and you'd like a copy of I was going to call it the one-pager summary. It's not. I think it's about 20 pages because it's quite a thorough, quite a thorough subject. But we can send you a PDF of all of the learnings from that session. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you there, Ian.
No, exactly. Yeah, and that's it. And that, like you said, we were speaking about it last week because it is such a prominent topic at the moment. And it was very clear that people just didn't know what was changing and what was happening, and they just really wanted that clarity. But what we got away from that event last week was its consent mode version 2 needs to be enabled if you operate in the EMEA. Also, if enhanced conversions and user provided data and first party data is going to be key to what Google is going to be reporting on when the death of the third party cookie comes. So they're really trying to hone in on the fact that we need to collect that data from a user using your website. First party data will be if someone was to purchase something, they would have to put in their information to complete that purchase. So we need to use that information to push back into Google Ads. If someone was to decline the cookies, obviously we can't see that information, but what Google does is still take that information, hashes the data, and still pushes it back into Google Ads to report on it from when people do decline cookies. And then user provided data will be for non-conversion actions like newsletter sign-ups, that kind of thing. So you'll get their information and you can push that in. And essentially what it is buzzword bingo again. AI was a big topic there as well. But what they were saying is that AI is now becoming so prominent with your measurement that you'll notice things in GA4 around attribution, around the way things are being collected, around user data and privacy. And it's trying to get into a world where if cookies are no longer existing, how does Google get that information into your GA4 for you? And the answer is it models that data. So it's going to take some time to understand what the user's doing and to get that information into GA4. It's never going to be exactly 100% correct because a lot of it is going to be guesswork because the AI needs to learn, and it's never going to be what you saw in UA. So people are always then looking at what we saw in UA and versus what's in GA4. The time has come to actually now step away from UA. One interesting point we heard from the roadmap of GA4 is when they do turn off universal analytics, there's no plan to take that data away or to push that or to move it anywhere else. So when they do turn it off, it's gone. So if anyone watching here is always looking back at UA data or wants to keep data pre-2020 or 2022 when GA4 came through, it's actually now a time to actually decide what you want to do with that data. We need to store it somewhere before Google completely turns it off. So
what are the options on that?
So their recommendation is to export it into a CSV file, which is insane because you can have years and years and years worth of data, and it's very difficult to just export everything from Universal Analytics. You have to choose what dimensions and metrics you want. But what we would suggest, you can come to us. We have a software which we can then pick out specific bits of information and puts it into something like a Google Sheet, and then we can then manage it that way and push it into things like Looker Studio, so you can always refer back to it when Universal Analytics is gone. The good thing about that data is it never changes. So once you've got it and you've stored it somewhere, you can always refer back to it. But the ideal way is probably to put it into something like BigQuery and create a data warehouse which sits, and then you can join it to things like GA4 data. So there are some options out there, but the time to think about it is now if UA data is important for you.
Yeah, it's such a challenging situation for marketing teams to be in now, not having instantaneous visibility on what campaigns are working, what channels are working. Those years are over. They're gone now, aren't they? Is it roughly 72 hours? Is that right?
About that, yeah. We've seen it before where we've had clients call up on a Monday morning going, where's the revenue for this particular channel? It's all in unassigned, and then by 11 a.m., 12 p.m, it starts to catch up from the weekend. So GA4 does have that lag, and it's because it's not last click anymore, it's not simple attribution. It's using AI to determine where's the best to store that or to attribute that revenue or that session. And then that's why you've got things like cross network, because sometimes Google just doesn't know exactly what. There's probably loads of touch points, so it goes, let's put it into cross network. And that's why you're seeing unassigned as well, because sometimes Google just doesn't know, so it needs to put it somewhere, so they've stuck it into something that's unassigned. So it's really important to embrace it, because this is just going to get more and more prominent with it. But yeah, it's definitely a big topic when we were there last week. Really good.
What other things were raised in?
So another thing was to get comfortable with privacy technology. So there was the head of marketing at Puma there, which was really interesting to see how they dealt with their transition from consent mode to consent mode version 2, and their cookie banner needing to be compliant. So they were doing things like enhanced conversions and tracking that user provided data. But what he said was that the cookie banner was needed, and it needs to be legal and compliant to what it's doing with that traffic. So when you embrace that and realize that actually your traffic in GA4 is going to change, because now users' behavior is changing, cookies are going to be set differently, it's important to embrace that, because it needs to be part of your marketing plan moving forward, especially at the end of this year when the death of the third-party cookie kicks in. Bearing in mind that they've already rolled that out to 1% of Chrome users, and they're now starting to roll it out more and more over the next Q2 and Q3 for a 100% rollout in Q4. So it's important to get that plan in place and embrace the privacy technology. And also, there was a lot of talk about server-side tracking as well. One solution, but that doesn't include cookies, is to track everything server-side, very similar to what Facebook used for the conversion API. And essentially, that doesn't take cookies into account. It sends that information directly to a server. So if anything was to happen on a website, that information could be stored correctly. Obviously, if a cookie was declined, so that information then wouldn't be sent. All of that information wouldn't be sent to GA4, because the user said, I don't want my information shared, or how that is. But what that allows Google to do is model that data and put it into like the privacy sandbox, which is their solution to the death of the third-party cookie, and something called the Topics API. So where Google uses third-party cookies at the moment, when that goes, they're going to be using something called the Topics API, which Google Ads will be connected to, and that allows them for remarketing and audience building, which uses the privacy sandbox. A lot of keywords, a lot of buzzwords.
I was going to call out some buzzwords there, but look, my lights have just come back on. Let be like that. I just want to thank both Abby and Sonia for requesting that download. Just comment below, we'll send it to you, or our email address is also on the screen, and we can send you the quite comprehensive guide to privacy and cookies that you can read over a cup of tea. So server-side tracking, I think we've been using recently a tool called Converge, haven't we, with one of our clients. There are more and more options, and now it's about looking at your whole tech stack, isn't it? Your whole tech stack when it comes to privacy. And we never thought we were going to have to be data privacy experts at launch, but there you go. A few years on, that's where we are now.
Exactly that. And in Google Tag Manager, there is the option to create your own server-side container in there as well. So if you have the infrastructure in your company to have web developers that are happy to do it, they can go and create a server in the Google Cloud, connect it to the Google Tag Manager server container, and there you can run server-side tracking without the use of any third-party software. But again, that then comes into a fact where you've got to have the knowledge to do that. Whereas you mentioned Converge, which is an amazing tool that you use for one of our clients. It's kind of out of the box, a tick box. You connect it directly to the channels, and everything is server-side tracking. So it's way more robust with the tracking, definitely.
Nice. Thank you, Ian. That was super interesting. Danny, thanks for your patience. We get to you eventually. So what event were you at?
So yeah, I was. I didn't go as far as either of these three to Dublin, but I was in London at the Omnichannel Leaders Forum. So it was omnichannel again. Buzzword bingo, tick, done. It was looking at the retail side of it. So yeah, we were looking at how how in store and online and that shift, and like some of the things Harriet and Elliot spoke about earlier were in terms of like store performance and online and Google, and probably Google's shift from 4 years ago where it was very, you know, COVID hit, stores were shut, death of the high street was kind of all there about, and sort of the buzzword then at that point was everything needs to be online and you need to make everything as good as an experience as you can do there. How that's then shifting now, and sort of it's interesting to hear Google's take on what they're now looking at in terms of how store performance can be affected by the online. We always knew that, but to actually get some numbers out of it in terms of the messy middle again was brought up, but I've got a new diagram on the messy middle, and then the touch points going afterwards of over 500 touch points that will lead to that. And then again, more buzzwords about channel blurring in terms of where a customer sat at the heart of it will go to at least 3 channels before they're making a purchase. And then going back to your decathlon story, one of the good bits about it was looking at, say, the website in terms of what customers are now looking for, where we've seen increases of people looking for near me and about near me available now and in stock. IKEA was a great example. So if you look at IKEA's website, look at anything, I think the example was looking at bed frames, a new bed. And the example was that you could get it delivered. There was one in store not available for delivery, and then the other option was in store and available. And it's that everybody, Amazon and the whole online, the need of I want it now and I want it next day is fine. We're kind of seeing a bit of a shift into I want it now. Where can I go and get it in the next hour? Where can I go and do that? And looking at what we can do from a Google Shopping part of it in terms of how we can influence the ads on the search engine side of it, and have in-stock messaging, have where the nearest store is linking to Google My Business, and being able to then make sure that the website is then seamless in being able to then convert that customer or do a click and collect order. That's where they're seeing the increase of that.
So many businesses ignore Google My Business and don't optimize it frequently enough. I think probably Launch's own marketing is probably guilty of that. But making sure that it's a continually evolving platform, and it's really powerful. And it's not just for large businesses, is it? Lots of local stores can use it too.
I was going to say at the event, I did have a sneaky look at like everybody that was there at the event it was a client focused there. So we were there on behalf of one of our clients that has got that sell apparel, that have got stores and an online presence. So yeah, but it was interesting looking at everybody else that was there and we all got a scorecard and we were all marked in terms of what the account performance looked like. And it was interesting to look at some of the big names on where they'd not linked Google My Business to Google Ads. So even things like being able to say where that is in stock and the nearest store to them. And these are some of the biggest retailers in the country and some of the big names that you'd know that it is not there and not connected. So yeah, there's a straight away opportunity to be able to then just do the linking and get those working. And also I think one of the other numbers again, customers, I think it was 3 times if a customer has been to the website, and an omni-channel customer is 3 times more valuable than just an in-store customer. So again, the whole part that online plays in a in-store purchase is then, you look at Ian's point of view on tracking and how do we track that, and there is functionality and there is options that we can do with Google's tracking from an offline purchase side of it as well.
Yeah. Yesterday, I did a LinkedIn Live with Jan from VWO, who are an experimentation platform, A/B testing platform for websites. And we were talking about the conversion event that we have got coming up in less than a couple of weeks. On the 17th of April, a brilliant day, CMO's Guide to Conversion Optimization, where we're going to have Pinterest talking, we're going to have Google talking, we're going to have, that's by the way, breaking news that Google are going to be at the event. We're going to have Microsoft Clarity and VWO, and that idea that, you know, we optimize our in-store bricks and mortar. So, I mean, you know, the amount of work that goes into creating a good in-store experience, but do we really test and thoroughly look at the online experience of our customers? And we're going to be talking about that at the event. But I think it's a really, you know, it's an interesting thing, Danny. We would be very disappointed if a shop had the same low conversion rates as many of the world's websites, and more optimization needs to happen on that front.
Yeah, it's making it a seamless experience. I think some of the other part that they went into, so we had a couple of the couple of areas that they went into was in terms of looking at online and offline in terms of where the numbers are. And again, if anybody watching this live stream, I have the deck. So if anybody does want to see the deck, then, you know, drop us an email, make a comment, and I can send it across to you. But in fact, I think fashion was the interesting one. It was like during COVID in 2020, it was 85% online. It's now dropped to 67. So the people have now gone back into store. I think food and groceries was the only bigger swing, which on the consumable side of it. Toys, interestingly enough, was gone the other way. I don't know whether Amazon and kids' toys and the death of Toys R Us and big players like that disappearing, that has shifted the other way. But equally, like when you start then looking at what customers had bought, there was another really cool stat of the customers that had bought in the last 4 weeks compared to last year. Every section was down. So we know that everywhere cost of living side of it is struggling, but looking at where home and garden, for instance, was down again, what is the weather doing? Has everybody bought it in COVID times when you couldn't go anywhere and couldn't go on holiday? But yeah, it's just looking at all the trends for your particular categories and areas, and then creating a strategy, but then making the website seamless, the website experience the same as the in-store experience as well, and also trying to convert that online customer to an in-store, and also how can you get more out of your in-store customers to shop more online. And the other one that would be, I wouldn't be wrong in saying it, but video, like that.
Video. Well, before you go on to video, and I'm going to give you 30 seconds to cover video because we're already slightly going over our half-past time. But on that point about I think it's called clicks and mortar, isn't it? Yeah. Where you have the bricks and mortar stores and the online. That was a really interesting deck that I believe you are allowed to share. So if Tom in the background could put back up our email address and contact details, reach out to Steph or Danny at launchonline.co.uk. If you've got that clicks and mortar presence, because there are some really interesting learnings there, and we'd be happy to share that with you. Okay, you've got 30 seconds on video, Danny.
It was a case of, I think there's still, I think even with us as an agency, our clients, you know, video is one of the last things that I think they struggle to get sign off on in terms of a spend, because it is an awareness and, you know, it's a performance. The big challenge for the last 2 years has been getting the most performance out of the budget. So we're now having to look at how do we then funnel that and fuel the performance from awareness, and display and video is the other way to do it. But yeah, 77% of customers, I think, at the last year made a purchase, watched a video before making a purchase. I've done the same I've just bought a tumble dryer. Not a very sexy product to buy, but the amount of videos that I had to watch to understand vented or heat pump or condenser, bizarre. But yeah.
Did you go? That's a topic.
I went heat pump, but yeah.
I think that video is something that is really, really underutilized, and you know, look, it does require some work to work out what your messaging is, but it is super valuable if you can get great video content across all of your marketing channels, because it has a bigger impact, no question. Any final thoughts before I call an end to our 11s with law, which I've called it today because it wasn't a lunchtime event? No final words. I think we've left everything on the table. Well, Thank you, everybody, for joining. Those of you who are watching back, thank you very much. And those of you who commented watching live, thank you. We want to do more of these. We feel like we're in a very privileged position to be able to go to some of the most sought after Google events, and we want to be able to share the love. So do follow this channel, do make sure you subscribe, and reach out if there's anything that we can help you with, and hopefully see you in Bristol. There's a few more tickets left to our event. Thank you, Sonia. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And yeah, tune in for another one of these soon. Thank you very much, team.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Cheers all.